Hello to all of you moms out there. This is episode 19 of the Solve for Mom podcast, the podcast where you get to use science-based life planning to excel while prioritizing family time. I'm your host, Anoki Kapasi. Today, we're opening up our books to learn a bit about the laws of mom life dynamics, inspired by the basic laws of thermodynamics. As you can tell, we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. But if you're racking your brain trying to remember what the laws of thermodynamics are, or wondering what lessons about planning our lives we could possibly draw from this physical chemistry concept, then hang around, listen with an open mind, because after this episode, you will be able to conserve energy and optimize your daily flow. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Solve for Mom podcast. Do you love spending family time together every day but realize that your own interests have fallen to the wayside? Do you have a long list of things you wish to learn but you're so tired from trying to balance it all on your own and frustrated from not planning ahead to make it happen? Have you been mom for so long that you've lost track of who you are as an individual? Hi, I'm Anoki. I'm a PhD biomedical researcher, homeschooling mom, and life coach. I too poured myself into being a mom and thought I had to stop doing the things that I love to do. I was struggling to make time for myself, had lost my sense of direction, and kept second-guessing myself. I wanted to take back control of my purpose and passions, but I kept telling myself there'll be plenty of time for that later. Until I did what was natural to me. Using the methods of a scientist, I created plans to prioritize my values, organize my time, and take action towards my goals. If you're ready to go questing for your purpose, level up your learning, and confidently pursue your passions while still being the awesome mama that you are, you're in the right place. In this complex equation we call life, it's time to sharpen our pencils and our minds and solve for mom. Hi, this is a quick reminder to sign up for the free Solve for Mom Insider's newsletter. This is where I continue to share deep insights on how to keep up with your personal ambitions and find some independence towards these new skills that you're trying to build. I let you in behind the scenes of how I'm doing this with my fledgling business and even in my own family, how I'm maintaining family time while I get to pursue my various goals and passion projects. It is jam-packed with personal growth tips, journal prompts, resources, and opportunities to interact. Very soon, when you sign up, you will be the first to know about some special offers. So if you love the Solve for Mom podcast, you will not want to miss out on this newsletter, which shows up in your inbox only twice a month. So don't miss out. Check the link in the show notes below and sign up now. As you might have guessed, today's episode is going to cover the topics of energy, organization, and balance. And they're all actually quite related. The way I think of it is, when you're organized, you're then able to put your energy to the things that you want. You're not wasting your energy. And all of that leads to being able to find some balance. And believe me, I know what life is like when you're unorganized. When you don't have a basic plan, your mind is scattered and messy. You are doing a lot, but not getting a lot done. You might feel unprepared for the next thing, like scrambling to make it to your computer in order to log in for the next work call. There's no rhythm and consistency. It actually feels kind of jerky where you're unexpectedly starting and stopping activities. And all of that can lead to you feeling so tired, and there's no time for you to even reflect or enjoy any of the moments of the day. A day without planning for me feels like a metaphorical earthquake has gone off in my life. As ambitious, high-achieving moms, we have very complex days. For example, in my case, I'm homeschooling my kids, and I'm also working as a scientific consultant and also building my own business. That means I'm managing, in essence, 3 people's schedules. I'm working on multiple projects with multiple clients, and I'm a primary person for getting everyone where they need to be. If I wasn't organized, I'd be missing critical work meetings or deadlines. My kids might miss their sports games. More importantly, without organization, I wouldn't have time for myself or my own hobbies, and we may not get as much family time as I'd want. With organization, my typical day has so much more flow. I can wake up and have my morning routine. I have time for myself, but I also have time to either exercise, like I like to take walks with my kids in the morning, or get some quick hits done at work. Because of planning ahead, I have my kids' entire homeschool year played out, but there's still enough flexibility built in that we can change things on the fly if we need to. With an organized schedule, I'm still able to make middle-of-the-day client calls or respond to urgent emails, but also be available to prepare dinner and be there with my family in the evening, or tuck my kids in at bed, or make time for my friends. I want to show you how with planning and organization, you're going to know what to do, when, and for how long. You're going to be able to modify on the fly if you want to. You're going to be less likely to waste time or your energy, and you're going to be able to do what you want. Maybe you don't want to work all day. Maybe you want to carve out some time for yourself. And if you're listening to this podcast, I know that you also want to have plenty of time with your kids and the whole family. So we're going to go through 4 laws of mom life dynamics that I think are going to help you bring more planning and organization into your life. The first law deals with the conservation of energy. From thermodynamics, we know that energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can change form. So think potential energy. You're at the top of a roller coaster and you have a lot of potential energy, and as you go down, you're converting that to kinetic energy. The translation in our mom lives is that your energy for any given day is limited, but you can transform it. As moms, there is so much we want to do, so much we have to do, and it's sort of in our nature as high achievers. You are trying to figure out how to do it all. You're trying to juggle all the things, and many of you are actually pretty good at it. But you're going that extra mile for everyone, except are you doing that for yourself? No one is questioning the fact that you're a rock star supermom. That doesn't get around the fact that you have a limited amount of energy that you can spend in a day. And so it's not a statement on saying that you're lacking in some way. It's just stating the plain fact that we're human. So how are you going to go and spend your effort, your energy, your mood, your mind? I want to know what you want your energy to go towards. I mean, wouldn't it be great to do something for yourself? Self-care, personal growth, a nice indulgence, maybe do a hobby. So if energy is finite for us in essence, then the key is energy redistribution. Let's change how you spend your energy. You're going to align your efforts towards what you need to do, and you do that by planning. I'm going to link episode 10, which includes how planning can free up your energy. Okay, so by having your days planned out, or even your life, like when you're life planning, you can spend less energy because you're going to be staying your course. You're going to be putting your energy on the right things, the things that you want. You're going to find that you're going to be so much more efficient and productive with planning. Let's say, for example, you decided you wanted to try out a new recipe. So you start and then you realize, I don't have all the ingredients. So then you have to stop and then you have to go to the grocery store and you come back home and you start to unpack everything and start it again. And you realize, I didn't write down my list of ingredients and there's another one that I missed. So then you're going to have to go back to the store. It's just a bunch of wasted energy. And that is what your day is like. You can have a recipe, you might have your calendar, but if you haven't planned it out properly, there's still going to be a lot of start and stop moments. The rhythm and the flow is just not going to be there. So the solution is planning. Now I would start with life planning, and I'm going to link episode 8 that talks all about that, because that's going to be your roadmap for where you want to go, and it factors things in like your purpose and the things you like to do, like your passions. And then you can align all your goals to this life plan. And that is how you know you're staying on track. And when done properly, then each day you live out is really moving you one step closer along that life plan. So life planning is a really great way to start. I also recommend things like having a good system for planning out your day, using time blocking, and other high performance strategies. I also like to incorporate quarterly strategic planning, kind of like you would do for a company, but for your own life. So we talked about knowing how you want to spend your energy. But the other part to this is knowing what type of energy you want to put in. You can shift your energy into a different mode. You want to know that you're putting in the right kind of energy that the moment calls for. So energy could be like physical, or you could have mental energy. Does the moment call for an emotional kind of energy or a practical form? Now, it's not like one form of energy is better than the other, but for a certain situation, there might be a more appropriate way to spend that energy. I'll give you an example. Perhaps you come across a problem. Instead of putting in a practical form of energy, which might be problem-solving mode, you might be stuck in the emotional part of it that's frustrating you, and maybe you're complaining a lot, but you're not moving the needle on solving the problem at all. And in fact, because you're resorting to the wrong kind of energy, you're losing a lot of that energy. The second law is that entropy always increases. In thermodynamics, we know that the disorder in a system always tends to increase over time. So think about an ice cube. The water molecules are a really structured fashion, but given enough time, the water molecules get more chaotic. So the ice cube melts and becomes a puddle of water, and then eventually the puddle of water evaporates. The water molecules are in the air. There's this natural tendency for things to go from a structured to a more random state, and that increase in chaos is an increase in entropy. So in our mom life, the translation would be that chaos is basically inevitable, but the solution is to use systems to contain the chaos. Now, when I hear systems, I go straight to biology. Like, think of an ecosystem. What's that? Well, it's a network of living organisms and non-living things that all interact in a common environment, right? And there's a way to describe how these interactions occur. In an ecosystem, it's mostly based on the flow of energy and the flow of nutrients. In our mom lives, we can use systems to bring order. We have a say in which components to include in our system, how we're going to contain them, how we're going to control our environment. Now, let me ask you, is your way of doing things organized? Does it follow a set of rules? Or do you do things willy-nilly and haphazard? Because if it's the latter, then you don't have a system. So how do we do this? First, you got to recognize when you need a system. Here's an example. If you're walking around the house and there's just too much clutter, well then that's your cue that you need a system to manage clutter. Let's say you started to realize you keep missing people's birthdays and you've just had one too many misses. So that means that you need a system for tracking people's birthdays. Essentially, when you feel the entropy of something increasing, an alarm should go off in your head to tell you, hey, I need a system for this. It can be easy enough to create one yourself. And as I described, you're basically trying to define and control the components of the system, the environment, and then also the rules of how they all interact. But it's also highly possible that somebody else has already created a system for the thing that's causing you a problem. So if you don't want to reinvent the wheel, it might be worth your while to do a little bit of research and see if something exists already. Another option is to sort of hybridize the two ideas of taking a system that somebody else has created and then modify it to suit your specific need. Now, the third law, when it comes to our mom lives, is going to deal with pursuing simplicity. But in thermodynamics, this third law is, as the temperature approaches absolute zero, the entropy also approaches a constant minimum. In our mom lives, when you simplify, life is going to get less chaotic. So we can use systems, but as I said, one of the things you can do is control the components in the system and your environment. Well, that's what I mean by simplifying it. The more complex a system is, the harder it's going to be to manage it. So where possible, try to keep things simple. If you're trying to do too much without planning, it's also going to get complicated. So planning is a way of simplifying. So here's an example. If you have a goal and you just think about the end step, it's going to feel overwhelming to get to that point. But if you try to break it down into smaller steps, it's going to feel a lot less complicated. Overcomplicating your goal is going to make it less likely that you're going to meet that goal. And this is actually a core strategy in scientific consulting. It's our job to simplify complex problems. Because the method of simplifying and what you need to simplify is going to vary based on what the problem is, I can't give you a one-way solution. However, I can give you some examples. So one example is, let's say your day is just getting out of control, right? You're in sort of survival mode. Then something you can try is to simplify all of that chaos and unpredictability and create a minimum viable day. In a business, you've heard about maybe a minimum viable product where you have just enough features and just enough of the product to be built and use and work that early customers can use it and give you feedback, and then you can improve it. You don't start off with your first product having all the bells and whistles and all the really neat, fancy features. Like, think about the iPhone. Think about how many iterations it's gone through. So in the same way, if your day is starting to feel out of control and too complicated, then sit down and figure out, what are the couple of things I absolutely need to do today? If my day was a product and I need to get it out there into the world, then what is considered an unnecessary feature right now? And where should I invest my time and energy right now? Another thing you can do to simplify your day is to start focusing in on priorities. Think of it as kind of a focus funnel, if you will. The funnel would basically be, what can you eliminate? What can you automate? What can you delegate? And what can you execute? So the first thing you have to be clear on are, what are your priorities? If it's not a priority, can you eliminate it? And everything else that remains that are priorities, you can further simplify. What are the things that you're finding yourself doing repeatedly? And instead of starting from scratch each time or going through all the steps each time, could it be automated? Which stuff absolutely has to be executed by you? If there are things that need to get done, but they don't have to be done by you, then maybe you can delegate them. I use all 4 of these at work, in my homeschool, and at my home all of the time. Now, did you know that there was another law of thermodynamics? It's actually the Zeroth Law of thermodynamics, and it deals with equilibrium. And that's, if 2 systems are in equilibrium with a third, then they are in equilibrium with each other as well. The way that I translate that for us is that balance is basically relational, right? It's not absolute. It's not this one single thing that you're going to strive for, and once you reach it, you're done. I do think that you can find a good balance, but you can't just stay like that forever. You're constantly going to have to adjust and modify. But when you achieve balance or close to balance, the amount of effort it's going to take to regain balance if you're off kilter is not going to be as hard. Now, a lot of people talk about work-life balance, right? You want to have some of both, but you don't want it to be tipped in one direction too much. And I often talk about balancing your own individuality with family time, because as a mom, both should be important to you. I think it's important to sync your needs with your family's needs. So how do you do this? Again, I think it all starts with life planning, because with a life plan, you are defining your priorities, you know what your goals are, you know where you're headed, and you know how you're going to do that. So then you can use that life plan as a reference, and you can align your time and how you spend it against that life plan. I'm going to teach you how to recalibrate when your balance feels off. And if you have a life plan, things will be a lot easier. But the tactics I'm sharing with you now could also be done without a life plan. So one thing I've talked about is blending. If you know what your family's priorities are and you know what you want to do, if there's a way to merge them and do them together, then that would be ideal. So I might have used this example before, but I actually do it a lot, which is why I'm bringing it up. If there's a book that I want to read and my kids want to have some connection time and hear a story, then I might just take the book I'm reading and read it out loud to them. Another way to bring balance is setting boundaries. Figure out what your non-negotiables are and try to honor them. And remember, I say this a lot, but when you say yes to one thing, you're also saying no to another thing. So you've got to figure out what you want in your yes bucket, and the things that you don't want should end up in the no bucket. But by doing that, you're stacking your day in favor of the things that you want to do. And if it's what you want to do, then it should be bringing you some sort of balance. When you're trying to figure out what it is that you want to do versus not, it might help to do some sort of joy audit, like looking at how you're spending your day and figuring out how much of your day is what you want to do and how much of it is not. Or are the mix of activities that you're doing working well together? Are you finding balance in your physical energy and your mental well-being and your joy and mental stimulation, things like that? All right, I hope you had as much fun as I did with the science-style approach to thinking about our mom lives. Whenever you feel that the rhythm of your day or your energy increases in chaos and you just feel unbalanced, then remind yourself of these laws of mom life dynamics. So to recap, the first law is the conservation of energy. And the way that you manage your energy includes things like life planning, having a good system for planning your day, strategic planning and quarterly review, and also making sure that you're using the right kind of energy for the current moment. The second law is that entropy always increases. So for us, we'd like to manage our chaos. And we can do that by using systems to contain it. You can design your own system, which involves controlling for the components in the system, controlling for the environment, and then defining the rules in how they interact. But you could also seek out systems that have already been created for your very problem, or take an established one and modify it to suit your needs. The third law was to pursue simplicity in our lives. And you can do this by using a focus funnel or a minimum viable day approach. And the Zeroth Law was the law of equilibrium, and it talked about how you can recalibrate when the balance is off by things like setting boundaries or doing a joy or time audit and using your life plan to help you align your priorities. I think it's also important to point out that when we're talking about planning, we're not talking about some rigid plan that takes all the spontaneity out of your day. I'm talking about having some idea of how you plan and spend your day so that you have a chance of being productive, whether it's with your energy or in some other way. And so if you're having an issue with low energy or too much chaos or feeling unbalanced or things feeling so complex and overwhelming, then try leaning on these 4 laws of mom life dynamics to fuel your day, and you can finally make space to let your own personality shine through. I hope today's episode will help you create time and freedom to pursue something you love to do. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe and tell other ambitious mamas about it. Who knows, you might even make a new friend by sharing a tip. It's all free. By the way, it would be amazing to hear what you think about the show when you leave a review. After all, my passion is to make this a great experience for you. Thank you for making my show a part of your day. I'll see you next week for another episode of the Solve for Mom podcast with Anoki Kapasi.